we'll have to wait for everybody to come in. But
Yeah, for sure.
how was your day?
Oh, it's been a day. We got snow here. We ended up getting
Where,
snow, and just sucks.
where are you at?
I'm in Illinois, Central Illinois,
Oh, Central. Okay,
Bloomington.
I'm in
Yeah, Bloomington
North.
area. If you're familiar with that,
Where at?
Bloomington.
Oh yeah. Okay. Hi
I
May,
did
how are you?
bring I did bring my headset along. Do you think that's going to be more helpful, or
I hear you just fine.
okay, good.
So,
So I got to ask, what did you do to your arm?
I tore my distal bicep tendon, the tendon that attaches your bicep to your forearm. I ruptured that. I was just picking up a piece of equipment at work on Thanksgiving morning because we were doing some PM work while they were down, and it just tore right off, and my bicep curled up into my shoulder. It was brutal, man. Yeah, it was not fun at all. How about you?
So when did you have surgery then?
December 2nd, like a
Yeah,
week later.
I had mine the 4th. You just seem so much more mobile than I've been, and I'm just
Yeah,
like, must be a completely different surgery, right?
yeah.
With recovery time.
Which one did you tear?
So I tore in the actual shoulder, along
Yeah,
with the rotator cuff and the subscapular and all of that. So they had to do a full cleanup job. They pulled the bicep out, nailed it into the front of my shoulder.
yeah.
Uh, so my
That's
left arm was useless for 2 months, and
yeah,
like just now I'm starting with 4-pound weights where I can actually like curl it.
right.
So
Yeah,
but I
that's
saw
that's
your
a
ass at the gym the other day, and I was like, son of a gun, like
yeah.
I want to do that.
Yours was more brutal than mine. That surgery, because I do have to have rotator cuff surgery, but I've been putting it off for as long as I can because I know it's like a really long recovery process. And
In the same arm or other arm?
so, let's see. We got, what time is it? It's
6:57.
almost 7. Yeah, it's. I'm glad. I mean, I was out for like a month. I couldn't do anything. I just had to sit and do nothing and let it heal. And then once I started back to therapy, it went pretty quick. And I mean, I was anxious to get back, so I really have to
I
watch
bet.
myself. He was kind of hesitant to let me go back, but I promised him that I wouldn't overdo it in the gym. So we'll see.
That's good.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
I mean,
the hardest part's been the weight gain. And I think that's the piece that
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. You listen
I went,
to Tony Frisella.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, so he ended up having the same surgery that I had, and right away you hear him on his podcast, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm doing back to 75 hard." I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, there's no way your ass is at the gym. And then it was like a couple weeks later, he like admitted on the podcast, he's like, yeah, that surgery was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
yeah,
So
yeah. It wasn't fun at all. But I mean, a lot of good came out of it. I always try and find the silver lining in anything like that. And like you had asked me the other day in the message about what I had going on with social media, a lot of that came to fruition during this time off. I had a lot of time to sit and think of where I wanted to be in life,
right,
what I wanted to do, if the career that I was in now, I wanted to continue because I've been a plumber pipe fitter for 26 years, and I'm just kind of like, once I found this as my purpose, I've that time off really solidified that this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. So
that's awesome. So now, when did you actually start your TikTok then?
10 months ago,
Okay.
like I got on TikTok and I would post like hiking videos, but like the videos you see, I didn't start doing that till Memorial Day of last year was the first video I made.
Okay. And so,
And
what was that first video about? Like, what drove you towards creating this type of content?
well, it was a couple of content creators like Amy Grace. I don't know if you follow her at Grace
Mm-mm.
Quotes. She's kind of like the female version of us.
Okay.
Um, a few others. So what I found with this app is that it's a valuable tool for people that need to find help, who can't find help, or who don't want to go to therapy, or who don't have the resources to go to therapy. This is a great app for that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of good people like you, me, and thousands of others creators, licensed therapists, like legit people who are talking about real issues in everyday life. And when I got sober 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, once I got through the first year, I really kind of realized that this was my purpose in life, was to help people just get better, because I was
Right.
in such a train wreck for such a long time, and I was always like insecure and didn't know who or where to turn to, or I didn't even, as a man, didn't even want to admit that I had a problem, right? Because it's not the cool
Right.
thing to do. It's not the
Well, it's
tough
not
thing
like
to
you get
do.
a handbook, and if it's not modeled for you as a
Yeah,
child, like it's not available. You just don't
right.
have it.
So I started 2 years ago writing blogs on my Facebook page, and it got a lot of good feedback, a lot of healthy feedback. So I'm like, after about a year of that, I got on TikTok with my daughters just to mess around, and I started seeing some creators, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I just started talking about the things that I was insecure about back when I was going through all that shit. And it just kind of blew up from there. It started, Wendy, who's a moderator in here, she started following me on Facebook and Instagram and then TikTok, and she kind of started pushing me like, hey, you know what, this is good stuff. People need to hear this stuff. And I'm at that point in time, I wasn't really good with, you know, affirmation. I didn't really, I didn't take too well to that, but I just started doing it. And I kind of assume this mantra that if it makes me feel insecure, I'm going to talk about it.
Okay.
Just if there's something I'm insecure about, talk about it, because somebody else is probably dealing with the same thing.
Absolutely.
So
Totally relatable. It's
that's
what drew me to your content to begin with. That's how I found you. I'm like, we're not too dissimilar in
no,
the things that we're doing. So
yeah, and you got great content too. I love watching your videos.
I,
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been slow moving. It feels slow moving, right? It's just like, and not that I really had an expectation on this. Like you, I was having my shoulder surgery, and I started it 2 days before that, and then just started making content when I felt like it, But they had me all drugged up, and I was kind of out of it for a while. So I'd make videos in the morning and push them out, and then I, after about that first month, at the end of December, I realized, I'm like, shoot, man, I can actually maybe do something with this, because I
Yeah.
was starting to gain momentum. You
Yeah.
start getting, people are sending you messages and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and it's just like, thank you for what you're doing, and it was all the thank yous that I realized, I'm like, oh, we can build a community around this.
Yes. Yes, we can. Absolutely. 100%. Um, let's start out with actually you introducing yourself so people get to know who you are and what you're all about. Because
All
I've
right.
been actually talking about you on my lives, the last two previous lives, because I wanted to get you on, because I know nothing about breath work. I did no research on this because I wanted to be a fan and just listen to what you have to say, because it's super interesting and it's super helpful from what I've heard. So go
Right.
ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jason Smith. I live in Central Illinois, and my handle is Life and Breath. If you're unfamiliar with it, what I tend to focus on more is finding your purpose, breath work, and relationships. And all of those things are interconnected, believe it or not, right? Because we go through childhood and we all have our version of trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that we want to compare. It's not something that we want to dive into and be like, well, mine is worse than yours.
Yeah.
It's yours, right? And
Yep.
if you never learn to deal with it, if you never, learn to move forward from the things that are keeping you stuck in your life, right? And you can
Yep.
pretty much, that's the whole point with the way I view breath work, is you have an opportunity to be mindful and bring yourself back to center. And as you're doing that, there's going to be things that are going to bubble up inside of you, and you're going to have a thought that's going to pop into your head from a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's like, why is that thought still popping up in my head from 10
Yes.
years ago? And what that is what we call a trapped emotion, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yep.
it's something that you need to look at. You need to start working on it and figure
Mm-hmm.
out that root cause and that root emotion, right? That's
Yes.
causing that feeling. And you're going to feel it in different places, right? I keep pointing to my stomach, right? Because for
Yeah.
me, I tend to feel it here, right? Or you're going to feel
Yep.
it in your heart. You're going to feel it in your neck. You're going to have a lot of stress throughout the body. You might have lower back pain, right? That's going to be associated and tied with that emotion. And where people
Mm-hmm.
get lost on this stuff is, they just think, well, that's totally woo woo. I don't believe in it. I'm going to keep going to my therapist, and I'm not anti-therapist. You have to find one that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that you're going to be able to connect with. And I can tell you from the town that I live in right now, that's a little hard to do, to find somebody that you can truly connect with and is not just going to listen to you, because I don't need somebody to listen to me. I need something to help me navigate through those emotions. So then I ended up finding breath work all on my own.
Okay.
Right. And so you start doing the light breathing practices. You've heard me talk about box breathing, right?
Yep.
Simple.
Yep.
We go through with a 4-second inhale. It's just a 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, and then another 4-second hold. And what we're doing is regulating our nervous system. And when I talk about the nervous system, it's going to be whatever triggers you. And people hate that word, right? Trigger. I'm not triggered. It's like I'm a cop in real life, right? So it's just, when you talk about triggers, all the guys are always like, nope, I'm never triggered. What are you talking about? That's a bunch of bullshit, and then they blow it off. And it's just like, dude, you have so much stuff going on and you don't deal with it. And it's like, that's why you blew up on, so-and-so in the locker room, right? Or why you tend to come to work every day and you're irritated, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're upset. You have so much resentment to your core, right? And then you go home and then you spew that onto your family, not intentionally. Or you isolate yourself and you bring yourself back and you don't talk to your family at all because you're still trying to manage those emotions that you felt from the day before, a week before, a year before, 10 years before, right? And for people that are in a high stress job, right, the trauma is abound.
Yes.
There's more than enough to go around. And if you're not working on yourself, if you're not in the gym, if you're not regulating your diet, you're not taking care of your body, you're not getting proper sleep, right? And all of this stuff relates back to your breath.
Yep.
So I know that was a mouthful.
No, it's you're I can't articulate enough how you and I are on the same page, because I talk about, and people in my live who are faithful followers, I talk about triggers all the time and what they are. I actually had a video where I think you might have seen it. Your trigger is your red flag. And I said that 3 times, and that was the whole video. And it got so much play, and people were like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, if you're triggered by a negative, like if you have a negative emotion by an event or a person or a place or a thing or a circumstance that lingers for more than a day, or it shuts you down, or completely just ruins your day or your week, that is a traumatic experience or person, place, or thing that you experienced earlier in life. And you need to stop right there when you have that negative emotion that overcomes you and say, why am I feeling like this, and where have I felt like this before? And go back, either through a therapist, life coach, whatever you're doing, a shaman, whatever your thing is, and address it, because this is what is ruining your life. This is why you can't find peace. This is why your energy is zapped, why you're emotional and overwhelmed and exhausted all the time, is because of these things.
And so a good point to make there is, as soon as you're triggered, as soon as you feel that, if you can get to a place, and I hate using the term safe space, right? Because that's all. Safe is going to be different for you, going to be different for me, but it's wherever you can get to a place where you feel comfortable to sit down for a minute or isolate yourself for, a minimum of 5 minutes, right? And really go into your breath. Because it's like you've got that trigger, something's going on, you recognize it, your nervous system's going, all of a sudden your blood pressure's going off, you can feel your carotid in your neck start to jump, right? Maybe your face gets flushed and you can feel the tinglies going through your body because you're so triggered by this moment. And you can actually pull yourself right out of that by just going to a place where you can sit down, you can be isolated, and then focus in on your breath. And the one that I like to do for that is just 2 quick inhales in. And you can do that before you go in for a speech, or you got to talk to the boss, because one of my favorite things in government work is, hey, you got a minute?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we need to talk for a second. And it's just like right away, it just sets you off. You're like, son of a gun, I didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, that's a good opportunity to lean into your breath in those moments.
So you say 2 quick in and 1 out, like an exhausted out?
So it's just too quick in, and then just your body's just going to naturally do it, right? You want to just let it go. And what you're doing is you're just letting go of that negative energy,
Okay.
right? So it's just,
Yeah.
you're not forcing it, you're not pushing it. It's just going to be a regular exhale, and it's going to happen
So
naturally.
this is actually great information because I had never been articulating what you should do in that moment other than just writing down what you're feeling, right? Because you want to, in that moment, you want to be able to identify what your negative emotions are and maybe what the trigger is at that point in time. But what you're saying is, yes, do that, but
Yes.
now you need to calm yourself down so you're not, yeah, you don't kill yourself or have a heart attack or a stroke over something.
Yeah, just adding an extra layer.
Yes.
It's adding an extra layer, but more importantly, it's giving you power over the event.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're taking your power back, because all of a sudden, and this is what we do a lot of the times with the people in our lives, and I'm a big proponent for, if it no longer serves you, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right? And that includes family members, friends that you've had for 10, 20 years. I don't care. If it doesn't push you forward, if it doesn't make you feel good, if it puts a lot of stress on you, or your friends can have codependent relationships with you as well,
Yeah.
right? Where they try to pull you in, but when they do that, they kind of also bring you down to their level. And if you're trying to fight your own demons and pull yourself back up, and you have these people that are also dragging you down at the same time, you're just going to go into this negative spiral, and it's going to happen over and over again. So I love what you're saying with write it all down.
Yep.
Right? And then we're just
Yeah.
adding that extra element in there to take your power back.
Yeah, and then through my therapist, I go to a Christian therapist, so it's called an unburdening, but spiritual people can do shadow work and whatever your, you know, entity is that you follow. I'm sure there's something similar, but going back and healing that inner child or that inner, that younger self by means of any of those, the ones that I teach as an unburdening. But it's important to go back and identify where these are coming from because yes, the breath work can help. Yes, you can, you know, the moment will pass, but it's always going to rear its ugly head again at some point,
Right.
unless you're healing it from the inside out.
And the only way to do that is to get that purge. And
Yep.
that's why we carry a notebook with us or open the notes on your phone, right?
Yes.
And just make sure you're plugging that information in to pull all of that out of you. Make sure you're plugging that information in to pull all of that out of you.
Yes.
And then when you're in a better frame of mind, you can go back and you can review it and really start to pick those things apart as to what's actually going on with you physically and mentally.
Yeah.
So real quick, I just want to say hi to Carrie
Yeah.
and Fantac. I think that's how you say that, Fantac89. I want to thank you guys for being in here and leaving your comments. Fantac said box breathing. Progressive muscle relaxation is good for those moments too. You just missed it. We were just talking about box breathing, so I love that you made that comment. And Carrie, I want to thank you because you're our favorite too. We appreciate people being here and supporting us, and that's what helps us grow in the long term. So make sure
Yes,
you're sharing
absolutely.
our handles with other people so that we can get the message out that, you can be empowered, and it just takes you going to that next step. And that's what we're here for.
Yep. And if you're in the live, if you're new to live, if you tap on it, as it'll only let you like the live so many times, but that helps us move up in the live rankings. And it'll get our lives out to more people. So that's what liking our lives do for us content creators. So just make sure you're doing that if you can. So where did you? Let's see. Where did you come from with your trauma? An example of what I'm asking is I've had a lot of abandonment issues in my life. With my dad, maybe you've seen videos on. I'm pretty open about everything. A pretty nasty divorce, but just a long 5 years of identifying my shit and rebuilding it. That's where all of this comes from. How about you?
Yeah. So mine, and I feel like an ingrate when I talk about it, right? It's why you don't see a lot of content on it. I don't generally say anything because I look at it this way in terms of whatever happened, happened. It's in the past. I can't fix it. I can't change it. It just is what it is, right? But there is such a thing as generational trauma. And when we take that on, and as a child, you don't know how to navigate your parents' emotions, right? So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going on. There's going to be anger, frustration, yelling, screaming, right? Which I look back on it now with a different set of eyes as an adult, right? And it's just they were kids trying to figure out their path in life.
Yep.
And they don't get a handbook and they don't know any better. And it's just like they're growing as you're growing. But that doesn't change the fact that what was perceived from the eyes of a child,
Yep.
right, made you self-isolate. It made you go into your head. It made you run to your room and stay in your room and just lay underneath the bed for
Yes.
for
Exactly.
hours on end, you know. And it's just like I look back on it now and it seems so stupid because I have a great relationship with my parents. I love them to death, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate that that's what was going on. And then as a teenager, we had moved and there was other stuff that was going on. I was 97 pounds my freshman year of high school. I was only 4'11", right? And so
Yeah.
you go through these things and over time
Right.
it accumulates. And then there was some stuff that went on in my 20s relationship wise that changed me foundationally.
Yeah.
And when that occurred, I was like probably 24 years old, and the decision that was made wasn't my decision. And I was very frustrated and irritated and deeply angry. If you can see where I'm going with this, I'm not
Yep.
going to come out and say
Yep.
it.
Yep. Got it.
But it never should have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was just no reason for it, and it goes against my own personal beliefs and my religious beliefs and everything else.
Yeah.
So that occurred, and it's unfortunate, but that impacted every relationship I ever had after that, and I didn't realize it. You
Yeah.
just don't realize it because you get into a relationship and then you find something wrong or something's not going right, and then you get rid of the relationship and then you find a new one, and then it's good for a few months, and there's been a cycle
Yep.
throughout my life with that. And then you hit a point where you go, shit, I am the common denominator
I was
in
just gonna say that.
all of my problems.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
you look back at this and it's just like, okay, well, what am I doing? Because I have a good job. I'm educated. I have a nice house. It's clean. You know, I'm super organized, right?
Yeah.
OCD even. And so you start to try and pick all those little things apart of, well, what am I doing wrong? And then it becomes, well, there's something wrong with me. And then it becomes, I'm unlovable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You create these agreements with yourself.
Yes.
You attach to yourself.
Right. And that's your belief system. But as a child, you also had agreements and beliefs that were handed to you from your caregivers and the people that took care of you.
Yep.
Right. And that became a part of your identity and who you are as a person. So at some point, again, you hit that point where you're like, I'm the common denominator, but then everything else starts to fall apart along with that as you start
Right.
to dig yourself out of that hole. And I don't even know what to call it, but if you've read How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPura,
I haven't.
she defines it as the dark night of the soul, which you'll see the spiritualists call it your spiritual awakening, right? There's a significant event that occurs in your life that is life altering, and it changes you to the degree that now you can't see life in any other way.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the veil has been dropped, right? Whatever you were doing in the autopilot mind no longer exists, and all you have is, you know, the chaos that came before, and now you're in this emotional chaos trying to figure yourself out because, you know, you're just an emotional wreck. And
Yep.
I don't think enough men talk about this kind of stuff, that, you know, we don't talk about our emotions, we don't divulge it, we don't push it out there, because it feels like it's generally not accepted. I've been seeing a lot of TikToks on that, and
Yep.
at some point I'm going to move in that direction.
Yeah.
With some of my stuff, but I've been looking for people like you that we can kind of create a little bit of a community.
Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
try to build off that on there to get a message out, like as a group, I think would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I fully 100% believe that God gave me the superpower of vulnerability as a man, and that is really the foundation of my platform and everything that I do. Is I really do not care what anyone thinks about me other than my little tribe of people that I care about, and I'm going to say everything that I have to say, and it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me one bit if I get trolls coming at me, if I get, alpha males calling me a beta or a simp or whatever. I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm speaking the truth that you're thinking, but you're too insecure to talk about. That's the truth. Because I was that way for 30 years. I was taught, we were taught, don't be a pussy, man up, suck it up. You don't talk about shit like that. And that's what got me to where I'm at, or got me to the point where everything fell apart, where I was standing at the edge of the rabbit hole where everything was going to it was all or none. It was either going to end or I was going to fix it, you know? So, and that's really the foundation of why I do what I do, because I want men, especially, you know, to understand that it's okay. Like, if you want to be a man, right? And we all want to be men as men. We want to be viewed as men. We want to be viewed as strong, capable, you know, providers, protectors, and all that. What they don't understand is that being an emotional safe place for your tribe is a big part of that.
Sorry, could
And
you say that again?
shut up, sorry. And what I'm trying to get across is that there's these five areas, right? Your physical, your emotional, your mental, your financial, and your spiritual health need to be in check. You should be checking in with yourself daily, weekly, where you're at in those five areas, and make sure that you're strong. You know, you don't have to be excelling in any one or the other, but make sure that you are 80% in a healthy place in all those areas, that you're not making bad financial decisions, that you're checking in with your own emotions or your family's emotions or your friends. Like, if they come to you, you're not just shutting them down, you have a safe place for them to come. And this is where a true grounded conscious masculine man resides. He doesn't give a shit about anyone else or what they're doing or what they're saying about him. He has his purpose, he has his tribe, and he's built a safe haven for them to come and be safe, right? And open up and be honest. So I think when I posted those 6 videos about the end of, or, you know, my divorce and how it all played out, it was very apparent to me in the comments that 80% of the men went through the same thing, where they were just working and they were just protecting, and that's it. And their marriages fell apart and they're divorced, or they're going through divorce, or things aren't good. Like, so it's imperative, like you said, that men like us band together and create a community where men can come and be like, you know what, yeah, I'm a badass, I'll pick shit up and move it around all day, you know, I'll fight for my people. But hey, you know, here's a great example of a bunch of men who are doing it right. We're doing all the other parts of it too, which is really what women
Right.
want. Women just want to be safe, they want to be secure, they want to be, you know, in all those areas.
But it goes back to the definitions that we assign to men, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, you're an alpha, you're a beta, you're a sigma, whatever that is,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, but my question to you is, do we really need those labels? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think those labels are, you know, like the alpha, I think it's, damn it, sir, shut up. I think, my personal belief, they are legitimate terms, right? But the word alpha was created in the 1970s to document the hierarchy of a chimpanzee family, is what it was, or a group, or whatever, a colony, whatever they call it. I think masculinity and femininity are the only terms that we need to use, right? Because men are capable of being feminine, women are capable of being masculine. It's all different variations and different percentages. And and if you're talking in the terms of a relationship, it's so unique to each one. You can't label one specific gender to be a specific way, or because it's so fluid and so dynamic and it's so personal to each relationship and each person, right? Like, I love to cook, it's one of my favorite things to do. So does that make me feminine? No, I actually just enjoy cooking and providing a healthy meal for my family. That's a very masculine trait.
Right.
So I mean, it's the traditional dichotomy of definitions when it comes to those, I think, is out the window nowadays. I think people are understanding that you can be whatever you want, and as long as your better half is equal to, or, you know what I mean, like, we can't do everything good ourselves. So as long as we're, you know,
Right.
good for each other, then to hell with what everyone thinks. You know. So
No, I like. Yeah, it's definitely. And you lose. This is where we lose a lot of men, right? Is when we start talking about your divine masculine and your divine
yeah,
feminine, right? And that you have two parts of you, and you bring those together to create that complete person. You're already worthy, whole, and complete as you are,
yeah,
right? And so you just have to make sure that you're in touch with those two sides of yourself. But what it seems like, it feels like, right, is it's always a battle, right?
right,
Well, I can't be this way because it's going to be perceived by the public and people in my life and, external sources as not being strong enough, or,
yeah,
whatever it is that whatever negative emotion you're to attack tack on to that, right? And so that's why I think it's important that we start putting out there that these definitions are not important. What's
No.
important is that you are a whole human being, and the way that we do that is by practicing mindfulness, by getting into your faith, by taking care of your finances, right? By taking care of your fitness. Because when you feel good physically, emotionally, financially, right, your life automatically levels up.
Yes.
It's a natural byproduct of what's happening just by your
Yep.
own action. And I think people miss that point all too often.
Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate, if you haven't noticed yet, for men going to therapy, and I also believe that men should be open. I'm kind of a little bit different than most. I don't think men should be open with their females, whatever, with their significant other. I don't think men should be open about their traumatic past. I think men should go to therapy to deal with that. I think
I agree.
men should be a safe place emotionally for their women to come to, and they should open up about the day-to-day things. But if a man is harboring some really traumatic past from before her, he should go to therapy and deal with that. He does not need to burden his woman with that kind of heaviness, or she just doesn't need that. And I know a lot of women are like, oh, I want to hear about it. I want to hear,
No,
a
you
lot of
don't.
this, a lot of the stuff that we've been through, you don't want to know
You
about.
don't want to hear it.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
So
It's even hard for them to acknowledge that, because you have to look at what they were modeled as children as well by their own fathers,
right.
right? Somebody who was probably closed off, isolated, right? Maybe not as loving and caring, a very stoic figure, right?
Yep.
Kind of what we imagine is like the 50s, 60s, father
Yes.
figure. If he goes to
Yes.
work, he comes home, you leave dad alone until he gets his dinner, all
Yeah.
this other stuff, right? There's just all these
Absolutely.
things in there. And have you read any of Brene Brown's work?
I haven't read. I watched her Netflix special. That's the
Yeah,
only
and
thing
I don't know if she mentions this on her Netflix special, but there was a story of her sitting there signing books, right, at a bookstore,
mm-hmm.
and this man's quietly waiting in line, and his wife and daughter, they go up and they get their book signed, and he quietly walks up to her and just says, how convenient. And she's taken back by that. By what do you mean, how convenient? And the book is obviously talking about the emotional aspect of relationships and how they're defined, and it's from a female perspective, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
he's saying it's convenient because you're not looking at the male perspective
Right.
in the work that you're doing
Right.
currently. Now, she
Right.
did come back and she wrote a book later on, Men and Women and Worthiness, which was really good. But I also noticed in her book she tends to repeat stuff from other books.
Yeah.
so, so,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of that. But the man said, my family would rather see me up on that horse in my shining armor, right? And to get impaled than to actually see me be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
With them. And it's
Yeah.
just that, and when you hear that statement, and I'm paraphrasing, right? It really hits you to your core, because we know that to be true. We know that we can't be as vulnerable as we would like to be,
Right.
right? And by, like you said, sharing the stuff from the past, it's not relevant. It's not important. That happened before them. It's not their burden to take on,
Yep.
but it is up to you to be able to fix that. So before you get in that next relationship, like, you got to dive in and fix yourself. And if you're already in that relationship, then your communication skills have to be on point with your partner.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to be able to, and men need to be able to express that to their women. If they're, maybe let's just hypothetically say their relationship is falling apart because he's not emotionally available, he's not communicative, and it's due to these past traumas, these past things that he's dealt with. He needs to be able to articulate to her, hey, babe, this is something that I need to deal with. I need to go deal with it myself. It has nothing to do with you. It's stuff from before we got together or whatever. It's from my childhood. I need to go deal with it, and we can't be strong armed into talking about stuff we don't want to talk about because you're our girlfriend or because you're our wife. It doesn't work like that. If you want a man to open up and be vulnerable, if he is coming to you and telling you, hey, this is what's going on with me, respect that, because it took a hell of a lot for him to just do that. And then if he's even saying like, hey, I want to go get help, I mean, he's climbed a bridge or climbed a ladder that he was not comfortable doing. So don't pressure him into doing anything he doesn't want to do. But the truth
Yeah.
is
On the
just,
flip
I
side of
mean,
that,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. That's fine.
I forgot what I was going to say. I had a brain fart. Go ahead.
No, just the general experience is that, when they do happen to be vulnerable, it creates a level of defense and defensiveness in the female, right?
Yeah.
She's starting to take it personally for whatever reason. That's not the intent. That's not what's going on. It's not about you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm explaining something that's going on at my core that I'm trying to be vulnerable and explain to you, and it turns into like something just nasty.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I've experienced that, and it's just like it's so horrible. And then, you have guys message you on TikTok, and it's the same thing where it's like, I don't feel like I can communicate with my partner, so
Yep.
I just don't say anything.
Yep.
Right. And that's not doing a service either to the
No.
relationship.
No, not at all. And
So
that's the thing. And
what do
as
you
a
think
man,
can
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. What was that?
yeah, you were breaking up too. You broke up too. I was just going to say, what are some ways that you think that people can make a better connection with one another?
Good question. As far as like in a relationship goes,
Yeah.
let me think about that one. Well, I'm going to use my daughters as an example. I think the biggest one for men is we always want to fix, right? So even if it's our kids or
Mm-hmm.
anyone that wants to come to us, our initial response is to fix whatever's wrong. And I think as a man, if I'm speaking to a man or a man, messages me with that question, um, I'm going to tell him to stop and listen, right? I'm going to tell him to either, whoever's asking you a question or whoever comes to you with a vulnerable, a vulnerability that they need you to listen or answer, ask them if you need an, ask them if they need an answer or if they just need someone to listen. I think that's the easiest way to present a safe place for someone, because especially a woman, she can just say, hey, I need someone to vent to, right? Or she can specifically say, hey, I need an answer with blah blah blah, whatever it is. So I think that's just stopping and listening is the first component to all of communication. And as men, it's hard for us because our mind immediately goes to, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to make her
Fix
happy,
it.
right?
Uh,
How am I going to, so she's crying, how am I going to make her
fix
happy,
it.
right?
Uh,
How am I going to, so she's crying, how am I going to stop her from crying? What do I need to do? And sometimes,
right.
I mean, women, it's important to know that men and women are completely different creatures. You know, technically, not technically, but most of the time, women are more emotional. At times, they're more emotional. Men are more physical, right? It's just kind of how we work. And it's not that we can't both be one or the other, but the majority of the time is physical and emotional. And like I said, we just want to fix, and women just want to get it out.
And it really comes down to, for men, we just want to feel useful, right? Like when we're
Yes.
when we're looking to fix, and we're putting, and we see you struggling, you're irritated, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're sad, you're crying, right? You had such a hard day, and it's just like all these emotions are coming out, and we feel useless because all I want to do is be able to comfort you and, help you work
Yeah.
through this and to feel better, right? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of men tend to take that as like a personal hit. Somehow they take it personally
Yep.
when those things start to go on, because they do try and step in and say, well, why didn't you just do this? Right. And then
Well,
it's like,
exactly.
now they feel unseen and unheard in that situation.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, at the foundation of what men want is just to be appreciated and what's the other? I mean, appreciated and wanted, right? Needed. We want to have a
Yeah.
place in your life. We want to be of value to you. And the reality is that we're always gauging our value to you by how you're responding to us or how you're not responding to us. So,
And as Lee's said here in the comments, and that's all we need sometimes is a hug. So it's like, if you can just shut up, dude, just shut up. Like you'll be miles ahead,
yes,
right?
yes,
Shut up, walk over there, give her a hug, right? Make that space, create that safety, right? Because what she's going through in that moment is, there's some sort of emotional turmoil, right? The
Mhm.
nervous system is jacked up. And you can tell because, her blood pressure is going to be up, her face will be flushed, her hands might be cold or clammy, right? You'll be able to see the signs and signals, but men are in tune enough with women to be able to even see that,
Yeah.
right? But for the women in this live, I want to tell you that's also a good time when you're feeling, all of those emotions in that moment. Dive into breath work, right?
Yeah.
I know you guys know about box breathing, but 4-7-8 breathing is another thing that you can do. And all it is you're breathing in for 4, then you're going to hold for 7, right? And then we're going to let go for 8. And so when you're feeling that high anxiety moment where you feel like you're in emotional turmoil and you're crying, that's a great tool to use. And you do that 3 times and your nervous system's going to be reset.
That's a good one. Yeah, thank you for that. That's absolutely what I was, like I said, I was telling my followers in a couple of lives prior that you were all about this, and it was going to be some really valuable information when we finally got together, and that's great. I mean, the other thing that I want to talk about though too is
Mm-hmm.
when men and women are in this situation, men are usually, a lot of men that you're going to come across who aren't vulnerable.
Hey, man, I lost audio.
Sorry about that. I think it's hang on, I gotta
Yeah, I didn't hear any
make
of
a
that,
text.
unfortunately, for like the past 15
So
seconds.
so what I wanted to say was when men and women are in this situation, right? And men are generally, if they're not emotionally mature or emotionally available or even know how to deal with that situation, it's important for a woman to be very impeccable with her words and tell him exactly what she's feeling and what she's going through in that moment in time, because we're not going to read your signs, we're not going to read your vibes, we just, that's not how we work. Some men do, I get it, there's always some that do, but the majority of men are not going to read your signs. Tell him exactly what you need from him in that point in time, even if he, you know, even if he just sits there and listens, or just kind of looks confused and lost, make sure he knows what's going on and what you're expecting of him in that moment.
Do you want to know the men that are able to do that? It's that self-proclaimed nice guy, right? Because as a
Yeah.
child, he had to attune to everybody else around him, right? And I'm guilty of this.
Yeah.
But you have to attune to everybody else around you and kind of be that peacemaker within the family, right?
Yes.
And when you attune to other people, you betray yourself, you betray your emotions, right? Because you're trying to do and fix and please everybody else that is in your sphere of influence. And
Yes.
that's where, so for all the women that are in here, you probably have a guy in your DMs who's a good friend, right? And he's the one that is attuning to your feelings and emotions um, and all the things that you're experiencing in that moment. But that doesn't make him an actual nice guy. Nice guys are not nice. They are manipulators. They're the guys that are going to try and get what they want from you, right? Because they need that because they can't do it for themselves because they never learned to develop
Yeah.
that skill.
Yeah, I think that's important too, right? You have those, if we're using labels, the one label group that I kind of I don't really agree with the beta male, but it is the first one, the beta, the nice guy, the gentleman, and the player. Those four
Mm-hmm.
types of men, right? And for masculine men, you want to aspire to be the gentleman. You want to inspire to have respect for women, but have your own purpose, your own direction, your own life. You want to be able to tell her no when no needs to be said, or you just can't be a man who agrees with everything. And those are usually the nice guys because, like you said, they're codependent, they have abandonment issues, they're insecure, they need that mommy figure basically to soothe them or to make them
Right.
feel safe.
And
And
it's
that's
just
not
because they believe at their core that love is conditional,
right.
right? If I do all these things for you, then I should be getting love back because that's what you got as a child, or
Correct.
so you thought. So that's I think if more people understood that, especially men, if they understood that, they'd be miles ahead in their career, in their relationships, in their personal development, in their mental development, their mental fortitude.
Yes.
Um, but it's just like, how do you get that information out to men where it's palatable, right? Where they're not going to feel put upon, or feel like you're putting them down, or feel attacked, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's imperative, like I said, that if a woman wants her man to be emotionally available, it's not pressuring him is not the way to do it. 100%. You're just going to push him farther back in his cave and shut him down even more. Um, Being like impeccable with your words, it's not only in those situations, but as a person, as men and women, but especially women, make it very clear in all of your conversations what you expect from your man or what you need from him, or have those boundaries in place where I need you to do this. I need this from you. This is, if our relationship is going to prosper and grow and continue, I need A, B, and C. This is what my boundaries are for myself. If I can't get that from you, then we're going to have to talk about something different, right? We're going to have a
Right.
different conversation.
And
But
that's why I think it's important that women also put a timeline on it, right? So
oh, for
once you
sure.
have that conversation, you've had it. There's no pulling
Yeah.
that information back, anything that you said, right? So now you have to stick to it, and like you said, be impeccable with your word, and that you're not going to tell him, hey, you got 3 weeks to shape up, right?
Yeah.
But mentally, you're going to tell yourself, okay, I will give this another 60 days, 90 days,
Yeah.
whatever, right? Whatever works for you, whatever feels comfortable. And if there's no change, then you have to do something different. And usually, what
Yeah.
that means is you have to leave. You got to give up on that relationship because it's not moving in the direction that you want it to, and it's not providing you the stability, right, that you need
Mm-hmm.
in the love that you desire in your life and that you deserve, right?
Yep.
And it's just recognizing that you are worthy, whole, and complete as you are. You don't need a man for that, right?
Yep.
So stop accepting men that barely meet the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Stop.
That's just, what is the bare minimum. I don't think a lot of people know what the bare minimum is, even for themselves. And I do talk about that a lot. I talk about making a list of your non-negotiables, of your deal breakers, of your wants and needs, and what you're willing to you know do on your own or not do on your own. Like, this list should be, if you're going to make a list for yourself, it's basically the cliff notes to you. It's you sitting down and having the inner dialogue with yourself about, what do I want from a significant other? What's it going to take for me to get off the single couch and move to the love seat? What is that going to look like? What is that going to take? And I think a lot of, and the other part of it is too, like, you cannot go into a relationship based on feelings alone, based on emotions alone, or you're going to get burned in the end, because you're a bullseye waiting to happen for a narcissist or a manipulator. Or, I mean, you are just, especially again, if you're like a physical touch and words of affirmation person, man, I mean, they're hawkeyeing on you, like they are
Yeah.
looking for you. So if you don't have that list, which is basically a boundary list for yourself, like, I will not get into a relationship if A, B, C, and D aren't present, right? Or like, things with me, like, I like to go hiking, but it's not a deal breaker because I'm willing to go do it by myself. I like to go to the gym. Again, I'll do it by myself. I would like someone to go with me, but it's not a deal breaker. Things like conversation, or things like, um, what's the other? I don't talk about all of them, but I only talk about the two: conversation and physical touch love language. I can't be in a relationship with someone who doesn't understand the physical touch love language and why it's so important to a physical touch person. So, like, and there's four other deal breakers for me, but again, like, I teach my followers, make this list and do not show it to anyone. Do not show it, because they will take this list and they will mirror it just to get close to you and manipulate you.
Yes.
So, in this list is what you're going to use in the early stages of a relationship, just to establish compatibility. Compatible with this person, let's say even compatible with this person, let's say within the first 1 to 4 weeks or 1 to 6 weeks of a relationship, establishing compatibility. If it's there, then you can explore physical and emotional connection. And I think if you handle new relationships or dating in this manner, and ladies, keep your pants on for the first few weeks. you're
I
gonna
was just gonna say.
you're gonna weed out a lot of bullshit dudes, a lot of bullshit dudes.
Yeah,
Now it doesn't mean that there
yeah,
aren't
because
the
their true colors will
yeah,
shine real
it's not
fast.
that there aren't dudes
Yeah.
like the good guys that'll play the long game with you, but you just need to be very cognizant that if there's compatibility there in the first place.
And that's always been my big thing with all of this is that once you make that list, you then have to become it.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
Right. So you can't ask of somebody else the things that you're not willing to do
Right.
yourself. But and this isn't about getting shitty or saying, well, you're not this, that, or the other thing. It's an empowerment issue and self-worth issue that when you start doing all of those things that you want for yourself, you just validated
Right.
yourself. Now you feel empowered. Now you're rising up that ladder,
Mm-hmm.
right, of your own self-worth, and you're going to be looking down and going, man, why would I date those people to begin with? That's ridiculous. I was worth so much more. I just didn't know that I was at my core and in my heart. So I accepted, because of a scarcity mindset, I accepted good enough in the moment,
Yeah.
or good enough for right
Yeah.
now. Or, he checked 7 out of the 15 boxes, right? And it's just like, well, I live in a small town and all this other stuff. And, I guess this is okay. And then you try to make this relationship
Yeah.
work for for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and God forbid you have children with this person, right? And so now what have you done to yourself? And you really have to recognize that there are 7.5 billion people on this planet. And with social media being what it is, right? If you're willing to put yourself out there,
Yep.
at some point, right? When you level up and you become the person that you know that you need to be to love yourself truly and wholly, right?
Yep.
That other person is going to meet you where you are.
Yes.
And then all
Yeah.
those questions that you had previously, you're not really going to be looking at that, because now you're dealing with somebody who's already on your level,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
it's a
Exactly.
completely different experience.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've succumbed to. I tried the dating apps and I tried and I don't even
Miserable.
me personally, I don't even like going on like first dates per se. Like I'm so, I wouldn't say reclusive when it comes to dating, but so passionate about that I'm just going to meet my person on my path, like at the gym or at a concert, or just me living
Yep.
my life going down my path is where I'm going to meet them. So I won't even like, if someone hits me in my DMs and like, hey, you want to go out to eat? I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I just, I don't like the awkwardness. I don't like I just want to run into them like as I'm doing life. And I think that's the way it'll end up. I mean, it's gonna end up happening that way because I just don't do anything else but that. But yeah, and it's important, like you said, it's important to say this too. We hear a lot about personality disorders and the blame game and all this victim mentality and all this stuff. That the reality is, when it comes down to it, you chose them. It's your problem that you accepted shitty behavior, that you're dealing with a codependency that you don't know about or you're not willing to acknowledge. Like, everything that you do in life that you let someone do to you is your doing. So the whole victim mentality, the whole blame game, yes, they're assholes. Yes, they did some shitty stuff to you. We're not debating that. But the reality is that you put up with it. You let it happen. You let it fester. You let it go on for so long, and now you're destroyed. And I'm really trying to gear my content more towards, like, not necessarily calling people out on their misery or their whatever, but like, hey, let's fix the common denominator. Let's fix the root problem of why this happened, right? Why did you keep choosing these people over and over? Because I had the same thing. I chose bad girls all the time, like, because they're exciting and they're fun and they always want to do shit and they're wild and crazy
Yeah,
and
kick your nervous system
oh
into high
hell
gear,
yeah, right? But then you end up
Yeah.
getting destroyed in the end by all of them.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep. But it goes back to, that's what's familiar, right?
yeah.
And that's what excites you. That's what you know, because that's what you experienced as a child, as an adolescent, and into your 20s, right? That's how you grew relationships.
Yep.
And so until you change the method in which you grow your relationships, right, by changing yourself and diving into personal development, your relationships aren't going to change. You're just going to suffer the same cycle over and over and over again. And I don't want people to feel bad or to feel put down, right? Well, you could have left that relationship at any time. It's
Yeah.
not what we're saying. What we're saying is either cut that relationship loose, right? Have the conversation and, explain to them what you want, where you're going, what you're doing, set a time frame to it, right? Of what you're willing to accept, and then stick to and be impeccable with your word that, yeah, I'm not going to accept anything less than this list that I've put down on paper,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm worthy of. That's what I deserve. And that's what God
Yes.
said I should have.
Yes, 100%. And if you deviate from that list, if you succumb and let shit slide, that's on you. That's not on anybody else. You chose to let shit slide, and you chose to go for something that you did, less than you deserved, and you got burned. So I mean, that's part of it, and it's going to happen, but it's on you. You have no one else to blame.
Yeah, it's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which is another good book if you've not read that.
Breaking the habit of being yourself.
Yeah, it's by Joe Dispenza. You
Oh,
might
I
even be
like
able to
him.
get you might even be able to get it on for free on YouTube. I do that a lot, by the way. You just look up the book first, and then
Okay,
I actually just finished Rich Dad Poor Dad as well.
that's a good one. That's a good
It
one too.
was
I read that when I was a kid, and I read it later in life. And I bought my daughters the teen version of it. I just finished the Four Agreements. I'm working on the Fifth Agreement now.
mm-hmm.
Those are great books. I
They're great.
love that. I mean, that's really what I'm kind of just modeling my life after now. That and the Bible, those two books. I mean, that's really all I need to be the man that I want to be. But there's other great books like Unfuck Yourself is a great book. I know it's
Yeah,
kind of,
I love
I
that.
mean,
It's so good.
but that is a great book. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is another great self-help, self-growth, dealing with your bullshit type book. Um, Atomic Habits. Though, I mean, there's so many good books out there.
Yep.
But
So what's funny? We could
question.
probably create a list. We could probably create a list for people of books to get started, because it sounds like you ended up on a similar path to me as far as the type of books that you were reading for your personal development. All of those, except for Can't Hurt Me, I haven't read that yet.
Oh,
Um,
it's so good.
but it's super cool. The Power of Now
I just
was
got.
another one for me that was really good.
What was it?
The Power of Now.
The Power of
It's
Now.
by Eckhart Tolle. Yeah.
Okay. Did I read that or not? That sounds familiar. Power of Now. Yeah, but that was so. And another point I want to touch on, maybe for your followers, I know a lot of mine have heard me talk about this
Sure.
before, but so let's say you do go and do the work, right? So for me, my experience was it took me like 3 years. Like I got out of my last really shitty relationship about 3 years ago. I was still drinking. It was a really toxic relationship, just booze and all the good stuff, right? All the exciting shit.
Right.
And I got burned in the end again, and I was just like, fuck this, I'm done. So I started working on myself really deeply in therapy at that point in time. And then I decided to get sober too. So I went to rehab. So it was about a 3 year span where I had gotten sober. I had dealt with all my inner child stuff. I had healed what I thought was everything and that I had. Like there was nothing more that I felt like I could fix. Then you put yourself back out there. Then you put
Yeah, there's
yourself in a
always more.
relation. And there's always the true test, if you're healed, is put yourself back in a relationship and see how it goes. And for me,
Yep.
it didn't go well. For me, we were good together, but we just weren't. It hindsight, we weren't ready, neither one of us, right?
Right.
But the fact that we broke up, it's resurfaced this abandonment issue, and I've done the video on it that I have pinned at the top of my videos. But it was an abandonment issue that I wasn't good enough, right? Why we were so good together emotionally, physically, and compatible, and we were compatible with each other, but the timing wasn't right. We just weren't. Neither of us were ready. And I felt like it was my problem. Why am I not good enough? Why doesn't she like me? Why doesn't she want to be with me?
Right.
Why doesn't she want to work on it? Right? Why doesn't she blah 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 blah? And the one good thing is that I was cognitive enough to realize, like, hey, this behavior is unbecoming of who you say you are, who you preach to be, who you teach people to be, who you're putting these videos out about. Like, this is not you. There's something wrong with you. You need to go fix it. So I did exactly that. I went to therapy, and I at that point in time, I had already broken my arm. So I'm like, shit, I got all the time in the world. I was going to therapy 3 days a week to try and
Yeah.
hammer out what the hell was going on. And come to find out, it took a long time, but it was like it was an abandonment issue from my dad when I was 13 years old, when I was like playing baseball, and he would either show up drunk to my games or not show up at all. And this cognitive dissonance of me not being good enough for him to show up played out in all my relationships thereafter, right? Because I'm not good enough for them. They're leaving. What's wrong with me? Like this event when I was 13 years old just kind of transformed my whole adult life, and I didn't even know.
And that's the whole thing. Nobody ever grabs you and tells you, like, oh, you're 18 now. By the way, everything that happened before that, it's going to be okay. Don't make that part of your personality. This is how you move through it and navigate it. Like, it would have been
Right.
great to be given a handbook that says, this is what life really is. This is how you should navigate it. This is what relationships look like. This is what a healthy relationship looks like, right? But you have to go through it to be able to get it. And even just putting out the content, right, that's part of the process, right? It's so cathartic to
Yes.
be putting that information out there, to be helping other people. And you're not always going to feel in alignment with that because you're human, right?
Yep.
So there's always going to be something in the back of your mind that's going to tell you, like, why should I be pushing out content like this? I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. I don't, maybe I'm not impeccable with my word that day,
Yep.
stuff like that. But you got to give yourself grace. You have to have that certain level of forgiveness, right, for yourself
Yep.
to be able to move through all of those things.
Yeah, and it's a vulnerability to understand that you're not good at everything. You have issues. I mean, it's the self-awareness and the self-acceptance that shit happened to me. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's healable. I can go heal anything that happened to me. I can move past this, but it's the self-awareness to say, yeah, it's me. That's
Yeah.
the hardest part.
And it looks like Sarah says, if it wasn't for that person, perhaps you wouldn't have found the blessings. It was meant to be, right?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yep.
And then
Yeah.
Dina says it's a battlefield is in the mind. I agree.
Mindset and perspective are the two things in life that, I mean, it can be our greatest asset or our biggest enemy is our mindset. I mean, I mean, we fight it every day. It's never going to end. It's never going to get easy. I wake up every morning at 4 o'clock, and I never want to go to the gym. I never want to. I never want to get up at four
You're
o'clock in the
never
morning.
going to, right?
Never want to.
Yeah.
But it's the mindset of I have to go. I have to do this for my physical health. I have to do this for my mental health. Like, those two things are very important to me. As I go back to those 5 things, like, I need to be good in those 5 things every day. So going to the gym is part of that. Do I want to? Absolutely not. I would love to sleep in.
That's funny. And so then Jenna says it's the learning to move past it that is the hardest part. And I
So
agree.
I do believe it gets easier, though. As you heal these abandonment issues, you become less clingy. If you are clingy at the end of a relationship, relationships end, right? They happen every day, they end. Some of them are longer than the others, some of them are not. And you should grieve the relationship. But if you are clingy, like you are calling and texting and begging and pleading, or it's going on months and months and months, and you're just laid up in your bed, depressed, like, those are real issues with you. Those are codependency issues. Those are, insecurities. Those are abandonment issues. Those are telltale signs that you need to go fix whatever you have going on. Yes, you're allowed to feel sad. Yes, you're allowed to grieve the end of a relationship, but it shouldn't destroy you. It should not end your life for that moment of time. I've had friends that were laid up in bed depressed for 6 months after the end of a 6 month relationship. And it's like, come on now. Come on. Like, this is you. This is not them. This is not, the world is not against you. This is not, the universe hating you or God's mad at you. Like, this is you not dealing with your shit. And I think that's important though. When I mean, a healthy person is going to be upset, right, for a week or two or three or a month, but they're going to move on. They're going to be able to self-soothe. They're going to be able to understand. They're going to be able to move on. So it's just identifying and having self-awareness that you're taking it too far.
Yes. Now, did you get into attachment styles at all? Have you read the book Attached?
I have not. I'm just starting to learn about that. I actually found it very interesting, and my therapist never really talked about it because
And they don't.
they don't, right?
Nope.
She knew about it, but she never talked about it. Turns out I'm like anxious. I was an anxious. What are the four of them? What are the four different ones?
So anxious, avoidant, secure, and then the last one they call fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment, or for whatever reason, the last one they have like several different terms that they utilize for it. Dismissive avoidant.
I think it was anxious. What is it? Was one of the anxious ones. I can't remember because I went ahead and I took the quiz online, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
quiz was, and I was one of the anxious ones, which made complete sense, right? It totally made me understand why I acted the way that I did in past relationships when they ended, and I don't know. I'll have to do the research on it. Maybe you can answer this. Can you change your attachment style as you heal and grow? Is that part of it?
You can.
Okay.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, you'll also find that you have the ability to change when you're in a relationship, right? So you may be typically anxiously attached, right? Um, which you tend to, that push pull dynamic with the avoidant is
Yeah.
usually what that relationship is. But you can get into a relationship with someone who else is also anxiously attached, and you can become avoidant, right?
Yep.
And that's just based off of your own nurturing, your own experiences, and everything that led up to those moments previously. And I've experienced that myself where I was generally codependent, anxiously attached. And then there's also been relationships where I've been completely avoidant because it became too much. It was overstimulating. There was just too much going on. There was all this texting. And, for me, it's like when you get into texting all day long and you get those 13-hour long conversations, it's just like, it's got to stop, right? Because it
Mhm.
becomes too much for your nervous system to be able to take in. And as somebody who's a people pleaser and you're a perfectionist, and it's just like you want to be able to please everybody all at the same time. So you
Yeah.
have all these other things going on in your life, and then you're stopping to be able to take care of this other person that's demanding your time in that moment. And that's why you hear me talk a lot about protecting your peace,
Hmm.
because when you eliminate some of that stuff and set those healthy boundaries, right?
Yep.
Like I will text when I can, right? I'm not going to text while I'm at work. So for an 8-hour period, you're not going to receive texts from me because what I do for a living is important and I have to be safe with what I'm doing. And I got to be cognizant and aware and, tactical with everything that I'm doing in my job,
Yep.
right? So for 8 hours, you are not going to hear from me. And that's a boundary. And so you
Yep.
set that and then you move on from it. But if you haven't, so since you haven't read the book Attached, that's the one that I would go to for attachment styles.
Okay. I think I might have actually saved it in my Audible. I'll have to go back and look, but I wrote it down. I'll definitely take a listen to it. So
And
I
then
have a
if you guys have
question.
any
I have a question
just
for
gonna
you. Someone asked
good.
me, anxious and overthinker, same thing or no? Thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear me talk about that a lot with being an anxious overthinker. So, and stress and anxiety all relates back to fear.
Yep.
So you're going through the emotion of fear, and really anger can be fear as well. And you just don't recognize it as that because we don't label it in that way. And it's really, you have to go inside of yourself again and be mindful and go deeper with what you're experiencing in that moment. You might be angry, but why are you angry? What's actually happening? Dissect the whole situation that's happening, and you'll find out that it's probably fear of some sort that's
Yep.
causing you to be anxious, right? So
Yep.
anxiety isn't something that, I know people say, I was diagnosed anxiety and I got to take all this medication for it. And all you're doing, in my personal opinion, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but you can overcome your anxiety through breath, right? And I got the books behind me to prove it. right? Now, everybody's situation is different. Your body chemistry is different. Your chemical factory in your brain is going to be different. So I can't make a blanketed statement like that. But for most people,
Yeah.
right, when you dive into a practice of breath work on a regular basis, you'll be able to overcome all of that anxiety that you experience throughout the course of the day. And the reason why I say this is because we're so attached to our phones, we're so attached to our computers and TV and binging Netflix for hours on end, and you're getting this dopamine hit over and over and over and over again, and your body's just, your nervous system's all over the place, right? So your heart
Yep.
rate's constantly up. And I'm big on this too, is nasal breathing, right? Most people look around next time you're at the gym, the way they're walking around, they'll be, and but they don't even know that they're doing it. And that's the thing.
Right.
Even when you're at work, when you see people in the office, right, you'll see them sitting at their computers and their mouth is going to be open. Well, that causes a dysfunction. So you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel lethargic, right? Like you need to take a nap. And when you start nasal breathing, what you're doing is strengthening your diaphragm and you're taking in more CO2. And when you take in that extra CO2, you're releasing the oxygen that's in your hemoglobin, so in your blood, and that oxygen is then going to go to the places where you need it most. So it'll be released into your brain. All of a sudden, your brain fog's going to go away. You're going to be like, "Whoa, that's
Yeah.
fantastic," right? And you're able to change your body chemistry in that moment by doing these things. And it's such a simple answer, and people don't want to hear it because we've primed society to say, "Well, I need a pill for that." Oh, you
Yeah.
got this going on? Yeah, here's a pill,
Yep.
right? And we don't look at the more holistic perspective of, your body to some degree is a machine, right? And it can be manipulated as such. And it's like, what makes you think that you don't have control over certain things? If you can make yourself anxious, if you can make yourself angry and fearful, and, all of these things that take off in the body, then why can't you also control all those things and bring them back by using mindfulness practices, right? Along with breath work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found, I mean, I coped. I had sometimes debilitating anxiety my whole life and depression. And for me, when I quit drinking, once I got past the first 90 days of sobriety, my
Yep.
anxiety probably was cut by 75%. I mean, I still get anxious about the things you should get anxious about, right? The happy anxiety or the fight or flight anxiety, like
Oh, yeah.
those are what your body is programmed to do. But all the rest of the bullshit, I mean, now that like I said, when you go back and you heal all these past traumas and those inner demons, that's where your true peace comes from. That's where there is no anxiety. That's where nothing scares you anymore, but the things that should scare you, right?
Right.
So, and I'm a huge advocate for energy, consumption or viewing your energy as currency, right? If you pulled 100 singles out of your pocket right now, are you just going to go hand it out to every Joe Smo, you know, that you come across, in your day to day? No, you're not. Then why do you give your energy to it? If you're waking up with all these things from your past that you haven't healed, as soon as you wake up, you're giving energy to that immediately. If you're not getting the right amount of sleep, if you're not eating right, if you're not exercising, you're not even starting with a full bank of energy in the morning. So no wonder you're exhausted. No wonder you're overwhelmed and stressed and anxious, and all this stuff is happening because you are literally doling out all of your energy before you even have a chance to use it for yourself.
Right? Let alone laying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, ruminating about everything that happened earlier in the day, a week
Yeah.
ago, or that moment once again 10 years ago that pops into your head that now you can't sleep, and you're up till 3, 4 in the morning because you're
Yeah.
having that anxious thought, right? And it's a habit, and it just goes back
Right.
to you have to break that habit.
So I want to
And
touch on
you're right on the
something. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say you're right on the alcohol portion of that because, and I wasn't a big drinker over the past like 7, 8 years anyway. It was more socially, maybe once or twice a month, right? But it was enough that you do it, you feel bad for 3, 4 days, right? Your
Yeah.
energy's kind of low, you kind of slough off on exercising and all the other stuff. And since I quit completely, oh my God, your energy level
Oh,
spikes. You feel fantastic. The
yeah.
anxiety is gone for the most
Yep.
part,
Yep.
right? And you
100%.
respond to things differently instead of reacting. You have the ability to respond.
Yeah. And I mean, this is coming from a guy. I started drinking when I was 13 years old. I quit when I was 40. And I like to say the last 5 years of my drinking career, I was on a 5-year bender. I was doing everything I could to just live it up. And like the last 6 months, I was pretty much damn near trying to kill myself. I mean, not trying to, but I was going to. So, I mean, it came to a really, and a place where I really had to quit. I had no choice, but that's the truth. The only reason I was drinking was to, bury away the shit that I didn't want to deal with, the shit that I had no idea about, the things that, were from my past or past relationships or deaths, death of my best friend when I was 26. My parents getting divorced, my grandparents dying, like my parents divorced when I was 15. So from 15 on, I was alone. I was by myself, raising myself for the most part. I lived with my dad, but he was a drunk and he was out partying all the time anyway. So it was like, I never had an emotional safe place to go to talk about this stuff. So I started drinking really heavy at a really young age, and it got out of control. But it's important to understand, like, and here's how it worked for me. Like, I was still drinking when I was healing in therapy. By the time, like, the last year of my drinking career, I had pretty much healed everything that I thought I needed to heal. So I remember I was sitting at the bar one Sunday and I'm drinking, and I'm like thinking to myself, like, why are you even doing this anymore? Like, you have no reason to do this anymore. You're in a happy place, you're good, there's nothing bothering you. You've dealt with your past. But by that point in time, I had become an alcoholic and I had to have it. So that, I mean, but yeah, now that I quit it, I mean, I no longer give alcohol any power over me. I no longer give any energy to it. I still go to the bars with my friends. I still go watch local bands. I still go to concerts. I still go on vacations. I still do everything and anything that there's alcohol around me. I just refuse to give it any more. There's alcohol around me. I just refuse to give it any more of my power for the rest of my life, because I never want to lose my life. I never want to lose my money. Don't want to lose my friends, my kids, all of that. I mean, all of it is so much more important to me than drinking. And I would love to be a social drinker. I would love to be a social drinker, but I ruined it for myself, right? There's nothing wrong with
Right.
someone who wants to go out and have a glass of wine or two, or go out and have a margarita or two, or a beer. And the people, I know a lot of people that can stop and it doesn't rule their life. And that's amazing. And I love it, but I just can't do it.
God, everything that you just said is so good and so just like dead on.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you chose a different path, man, because this is definitely meant for you. What you're doing right now, it's important. You're good at it. You've obviously created a fantastic community that's supportive.
I
So
appreciate that
good,
very
good
much.
on you, brother. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I, I've like my spiritual life has become more personal lately. And like I said, that time off where I got hurt until now, I became so much closer with my Savior Jesus Christ, my own spiritual walk with Him, during that time. And I really came to believe 100% that everything that He had me go through in life, He was just teaching me how to help other people. And that flips the whole script. That changes the whole game, because I now no longer feel any pity or any resentment or any grief or anything. Now I think, like, holy shit, like, I have all of this life experience that I can now give out to the world as a vessel of Him and help people. I can legitimately help people. And you see it. Like, I don't know about you, but a lot of people don't comment, a lot of people don't interact, but they will slide into your DMs and say, "Hey, thank you for blah 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 blah. Thank you for
Right.
this. It really resonated with me. It's exactly what I'm going through." There's people on the sidelines, there's people in the shadows that aren't talking about it or liking or commenting in social media, but they're watching. They're certainly watching. And I could see it, especially on Facebook. Like, all the videos I put on TikTok, I put on Facebook and Instagram. I may only get like 25 interactions, but there's 250 views, right?
Right.
Somebody's watching this stuff, right? They're just not saying anything.
Now, did you
So I
create
think it's
a page for your Facebook, or are you using your regular
just my
account?
personal one now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have, for the things that I was telling you about, I have a name and I have all the social media handles secured for it.
Okay.
Won't be ready to launch anything until next year.
Okay.
But
Right on.
yeah, so it's just been life changing. It's just been when you really want to fix yourself and you get to a point where you're happy about it and you're healthy and you understand that like you can heal, this is where your true inner peace comes from. This is, people talk
Yep.
about it all the time, but it's a euphoric feeling, and you'll never feel it unless you do the work. But it's so fucking peaceful, man. It's so, this is like, I want everybody to feel this way. Like everybody
Right.
deserves to feel this
No,
way.
I'm with you. It's so funny because it's just like if you could feel the way I feel for a few minutes,
Oh,
you would get it, and then you wouldn't want anything
no,
else,
absolutely not.
right? And that's why it's so easy to say no to all the other shit. Like I don't want to experience anything else. I know what I want. I know where I'm going. I know what I need, and I'm not going to accept anything less than that,
Yes.
right? And I have that firm belief that you know what, my person is still working on themselves, and as I continue to elevate by doing this type of work on social media, eventually I'm going to elevate myself to the point where we finally meet, and it's all going to come together in that way.
Yes,
Right? And
exactly.
just having faith.
Hi, how's work? Good. Hey, Wendy, if I'm missing questions, text them to me. I have it open. There's one thing I wanted to address though, and one of the comments on my end. Let me scroll back and find it. So Maria said, "Oh, where'd it go? You can't heal properly in. You can't heal properly if you're in a relationship. You have to fix your whole self." What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh. So to each their own on that. However, if you dive into some of the other books that I've read, you heal, you do most of your healing in a relationship, right? And there's a reason for this because it's going, what we spoke about earlier, it triggers you. And so when you're with that other person, right, you got caught off guard because you got into that relationship. You thought, yeah, man, I'm good. I'm healed. This is all good. Right. And then you start dating again. And then all these things start to come up and you begin, your nervous system gets activated. Everything starts going through your head. Now you might feel a little bit anxious and there's other things going on. You might get a little angry, a little frustrated. And it's like, well, why am I feeling this right now? What is going on? Right. And again, that emotion is going to be that fear of abandonment. It's going to be fear in general, right? Or that sense of low sense of self-worth, right? And so when you have somebody, when you have a partner that's willing to do the work with you, right? When you're working in tandem with one another, you're communicating, you're explaining what you're going through, and not to the point where you're saying, well, these are the things that happened to me at 13 and this is why I feel the way that I do, right? But in that moment, in that relationship with what's going on and how you're feeling, it's, you know, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, I feel, you know, I'm angry because of something else that's going on, and then you communicate that with one another.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. To each their own. But here's how I feel about it, and I'm pretty concrete on this one. If you have traumatic events, and let me just name a few, if you were molested, if you were raped, if you were physically abused in your past, those types of traumatic events need to be healed on your own. You're not gonna you're not gonna heal those in any relationship, and it's nobody else's burden to bear. The really deep, dark things should be healed on your own. Other non, you know, detrimental things, other things, if you are in a healthy relationship, and I'm going to put quotations up because it has to be a healthy relationship. Your
Yep.
partner has to understand, they have to be grounded, they have to understand the dynamic of emotional availability, mental safety, all of that has to be understood by your partner if you're going to heal in the confines of a healthy relationship. If you're going to try and heal in a relationship because you just can't be alone, or you're codependent, and you're doing this with a person who doesn't understand the dynamic of what you're going through, don't do it. Don't
Right.
do it, because you're only going to make things worse. But you can heal, and you should be, in a healthy relationship. They can help you understand how a healthy man, how a healthy woman should work, how they should act, how they should listen, how they should carry themselves, how they should, whatever your shoulds, right? A healthy person will depict that, will let you see, it's like, For me, it would work better because I'm a more hands-on person than actually a reading or writing person. Like I need to see it work. It would work great for someone like me. But you just have to know that they're a healthy person. Don't convince yourself that they are. Don't make excuses for them
Right.
because you're only doing
Don't
your
make up the story in your head of who they could be because you see
yeah
the potential in them,
yeah
right?
oh oh
Don't do
God
that. You have to
yeah
see people as they are in this moment, not who they're going to be a year from now or
yeah
2 years from now, because they may never be that person ever,
right right
right?
exactly. You can't. I mean, and that's even if you're a healthy person. Like you can't you can't bank on falling in love with who they could be because you just don't know, and then you're going to be disappointed and resentful when they don't, and everything falls apart and you wasted 2 years of your life, or you wasted a marriage, or you lose half your shit. Like, you just can't be doing that stuff. You have to take them at face value. They are who they are at this point in time. If they weren't, they would be someone different.
And I think this is where all the texting kind of screws us a little bit because we get into like these hours on end texting sessions, right? Going back and forth, and you feel like maybe you've created this connection of some sort, right? But the other person's got 10 other people in their DMs that they're talking to in the same exact way. So
Yeah.
you've got one person who's codependent that thinks they're making up the story. This person's amazing. They're such a good guy, all these other things. He could be the one. And now you're picturing, what that's going to look like when he becomes the one, and not really looking at it for what it is in the moment, in that you're two people that just met, you're having a conversation, you're getting to know one another, and it's going to take more than just a month or 2 months to really see who this person is and who they're
Yeah.
going to be to you, and really what they're capable of, because people can fake it, right,
Oh
for
yeah.
30, 60, 90 days, maybe even up to like 6 months, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
they'll never make it a full year without you seeing their true colors. And when you
I
do, now all of a sudden that story starts to crumble down, but people tend to double down on it, right? Because,
yeah.
well, I can't be made wrong in this situation. I know who you are. This is who you should be, right? And that's what the relationship is. And then we get stuck. We get
Yep.
stuck in a shitty relationship where people are taking advantage of you and the situation, right? And they're off doing whatever it is that they want to do, and now you're left to be at home by yourself with this other story in your head of, well, what's going on? Now you're anxious texting, trying to figure out where they're at, what they're doing, da da da. And it's just like, why? No, stop. Like,
Yes.
if that's where you're at, boundary, you're done. Walk away. You're out.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
I
There's gonna
100% agree with you on that. And here's my take on the texting thing. I learned this with my ex-wife. We would talk all day long, and this is before I knew any better. By the time I got home at night, we had jack shit to talk about because we had talked all freaking day,
yeah.
And I think you're gonna find out as you grow and evolve and become more mature, you know, guys like us, we have shit to do. We have a purpose. We have things that we're trying to get done. And women too. Like, women have, whatever their context of their life is, they have stuff they need to get done. And I think it should be known that if someone has to talk to you all day long, that should be a red flag. That should be a red
Yes.
flag that they're, not comfortable in their own skin, or they're with themselves or by themselves, or they need more attention than a human being should really need, or they just don't have a life. They don't have a purpose. They don't have anything driving them, or, like, it's just important to know that you shouldn't be talking all day long, because then you'll have nothing to talk about when you get home,
Yeah.
and that's
You're
just
just
how it
totally
is.
you're disconnected from your priorities,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
and you should never. And what that ends up being is a self betrayal, right? You're
Yep.
betraying yourself to try and please somebody else, and you can't do that. You're not meant for that,
No.
right? You deserve
No.
the kind of love that you give to the world, but you have to give it to yourself first.
You have to love yourself before you can love anyone else, and that's true. That can roll right into the other thing that I talk a lot about is your priority list. What is your priority list? I did a viral video back in the summer that was, do you put yourself before your kids?
Yep.
Everybody puts themselves before their kids, and I'm like, are you fucking crazy? Like, you're finding your worth. You're codependent on your children, right? No wonder your kids are ruling your life because you let them get away with everything. And I just kind of stated it like that in the comments. It was another, whatever, 10,000 comments on it, and I was like, this is crazy. But it was literally like 95% of the people. Yeah, I would put my kids before myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. The answer is a hard no,
Hard
because what
no.
you're now I don't have children, right? So I get a lot of flack for that from family members when I talk on stuff like this. But you also got to remember what I do for a living. So I come in contact with a lot of people, and on a day in day out basis, I'm dealing with children in a lot of different ways. I spend more time in people's houses than I do on the actual road writing tickets and doing stuff like that. Right? People
Right.
think that that's what we do. No, I'm in your house more often than not. So I see all of these things that are going on, and you see the parents that have made their children their entire life, right? And those kids are rebellious, they're angry, they're irritated, they're frustrated, they want nothing to do with their parent, and it results in these domestic situations that we get called in for to try and deal with this and navigate it. And it's just like, you want to tell the parent, look, you got to back off. You just got to back off a little bit. Like, it's too much for their brain to be able to handle your emotions and theirs. It's
Yeah.
unfair to do that to the child.
Yes.
And then they grow up to
100%.
be adults that don't know how to have relationships because they think that being overbearing in a relationship is the way that it's supposed to be, or being standoffish and that avoidant personality, right? That's what they believe a relationship should be because that's what was
Yeah.
modeled for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
And
100% make yourself a priority.
yep. And the other one was, do you put your spouse before your kids? And that was another one where absolutely not. My kids come before my spouse, and I'm like, no wonder we have so many divorces in today's world. Like, this is exactly
Yeah.
why, because you're not putting, I mean, here's how I feel about it, just to kind of bring everything together. For me personally, this is my, and again, like you said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a dude who made a
Yep.
lot of fucking mistakes in his life and figured it out, how to do things
Yep.
right. So for me, God comes first. Number one, that's just my spirituality. And I know everybody is not. So if you're not spiritual, take that out of the equation. But for me, God comes first, and then myself, because I believe that I cannot be my best self for anyone unless I'm not my best self for me. If I'm not sleeping, if I'm not eating, if I'm not exercising, if I'm not emotionally mature, emotionally available, mentally healthy, financially healthy, spiritually healthy, I feel like I am no good to anyone if I'm not good in those 5 areas. Now, I don't have a significant other right now or a future. I mean, if I had a future wife, she would come third,
Yep.
because I'm not raising my kids to depend on me. I'm raising my children to go out into the world and be healthy, happy, productive parts of today's society. I will always be there for them. I will always, if they need something, I will always help them out in any way that I can. But I do not want them living at my house for the rest of their life. I do not want them depending on me. I do not want them clinging all over me and what I do. I want them to go start their own families. I want them to go raise my grandkids. I want them to do all of that. My spouse is supposed to be there for the rest of my life. My
Right.
kids aren't. Now, like I said, I will always be there for my kids, but I shouldn't be codependent on my kids. So for me, it goes God, me, significant other, kids.
Yep.
Those four are the pillars of my priorities in my life. And if I have given my energy to that for the day, and I have some left, I'll give it out to whoever else wants it. But if I don't, I'm sorry, I got nothing left for you.
No, I 100% agree with all of that, right? Because if you're not making your spouse a priority, what are you modeling to your children,
Yes.
right? Because what they want to see is a healthy, conscious man, right? Love on his woman in a way that is kind, it's supportive, right?
Yep.
That you guide one another, you help one another, you're there for each other, you communicate with one another, right? You
Yep.
don't yell and argue all the time. It's okay, it's healthy to yell and argue in front of the children, but then you have to bring resolution to that in
Yeah.
front of them as well, right? To show healthy conflict resolution in your
Yes.
relationship,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
all of those things are so important, but it's hard for people to navigate that because they haven't really learned their own emotions or how to bring resolution to that within themselves,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right. Self-soothing is a big
That's
part of
why
it.
we're here.
Yep. Self-soothing, learning how to
Yeah.
self-soothe, learning how to set boundaries, and you are literally teaching your kids how to be in a relationship by, by neglecting your partner, by arguing with them with no resolve, by,
Right.
you're teaching them, they're going to follow the same path as you. And I mean, it's just how it is. We're here to teach our kids. We're not here to be best friends with our kids. We're not here to be, partners with our kids. We're here to raise them to be good people for the society.
Yeah. We want them to be productive and to be able to, protect themselves as well. Right.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of narcissism comes from coddling, right? Kids that
Right.
weren't disciplined, kids that were just allowed to do whatever, whenever, who weren't taught how to, who weren't told no, and consequences that come along with shitty behavior. It just, they think they get into relationships, and I'm just going to use a man as, I mean, because it can go both genders, but a kid, right, a boy who isn't disciplined, or who grows up with a single mother who isn't disciplined, or has no healthy male figure in his life. And I'm not saying it has to be in a relationship, like a coach or a teacher or something like that, or a brother or uncle, like just a healthy masculine figure. Those boys will grow up to not be able to be told no. Like in a relationship,
Right.
when a girl wants to leave the relationship, they will, they'll act like man children, and throw fits, hissy fits, like they're 14 years old, they're 13 years old. Like, it's just, that's what the outcome is of when you coddle your kids, when you don't discipline them, when you let them do whatever the hell they want to do.
Agreed. I agree.
So let me check the questions.
Chandra said, "Oh man, the stories I've made up." It's okay. Just give yourself grace.
Yeah, I think that's that is the foundation of anything, is just having grace for yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are so concerned about everybody else in our lives, we don't give ourselves the attention that we need. And that's where it all stems from. That's where all our codependency, all of our insecurities, we see all these celebrities on TV, and the way that they look and the way that they act, and then we compare ourselves to them, and then we have these agreements that we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not, like, I can't tell you how many times I have women come to me, whether in comments or in DMs, or even on these lives, or just in person, like, what do you, ask me, like, what do you look for in a woman? And it's like, I you know whatever I look for is what I look for. It doesn't, what you look for and what I look for are probably completely different, right? Women are so insecure about looks and size, and it's all this society that, and it's not just women, men too, right? It's not, I'm not painting them into a corner, but we're so concerned about what we think the opposite gender, or the same gender, whatever you're into, wants, or thinks that they want, that we're so hard on ourselves, because we don't even have grace. We don't even have understanding that we are beautiful just the way we are.
Right.
And I race, religion, big, small, tall, short, black, white, Asian, whatever. Like, there's so many different variables. Like, I know tons of guys who love bigger women. Like, what? There's nothing, like, there are guys out there for you. There are women out. Just because a specific type of woman doesn't like me doesn't mean that there's not, like you said, there's 7.5 billion people in this world. There's a whole shit ton of people that are going to like me for who I am, and how I act, and what I do, and how tall I am, and how wide I am, and how heavy I am, bald, bearded, whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
all 67,000 of them, brother. Right.
it's just,
But that's kind of what this is reminding me of, is just the fact that, you put yourself out there and you're going to find your tribe. You're going to find the people that are going to resonate with you as a human being, as a person. But you have to be vulnerable enough and have the courage to put yourself out there.
yeah,
Right. But instead, we carry these layers of shame, blame, guilt, right, that attacks our self-worth. And then we make up these stories of, well, I'm not good enough, that's why I can't find a relationship, or I'm this, that, or the other thing. And we start looking at the physical aspect of who we are, and we're like, well, it has to be that's why I can't find anybody. Instead
yes,
of saying, no, man, it's really your attitude, it's who you are as a person. It's,
yep,
I can tell you, one of the foundational things I look for now is, are you willing to be in a conscious relationship?
yep,
Because I can't be in a relationship with somebody who's not willing to work on themselves.
yep.
right?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
constantly be doing that. It's not something that you just turn off one day, right? If we're in this, we're in it together, and we're moving forward together, hand in hand, and that's the way that it has to be. And because this is what happens in a lot of relationships, you hit a point where one person stops growing. They're not reading, they're not listening to podcasts. They come home, they drink, they watch TV, they watch sports, whatever it is, right? One person in the relationship just stopped growing. And the other person now, they're working out, they're taking care of themselves, they're doing all the
Yep.
things they need to do for them. They're writing in their gratitude journal, they're looking into their spirituality, they're going into yoga classes and fitness classes and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, what do you think's going to happen?
Yep.
There's a gap in that relationship that now can't be filled because you're two completely different people, because you didn't walk side by side in what you were doing. So
Yes.
very very much so, conscious relation conscious relationship is number one on my list.
Complacency is the devil's playground, and then I've seen a lot of that. It happened in my parents' relationship. It happened. I mean, I would say it happened in my relationship too, my marriage. But we just grew apart, and I wasn't willing to. Like, she had been telling me for years that she needed more adult time, more adult conversation, more. She needed me to be more emotionally available, and I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I'm working 6 days a week. I'm home with you after I get home from work. Like, I can't do anymore. I just
Yeah, what
wasn't
more do you
willing.
want from me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wasn't willing to evolve. And it took, unfortunately, it took the end of our marriage for me to get it, and me to do all the work, thinking like, well, shit, I have two daughters now that I need to be emotionally available for. I need to set the bar for, because I don't want them growing up with daddy issues. Like, I don't want, I don't want them to be, you know, looking for what I couldn't give them in other men. um, but I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah,
Well,
like for
I would like to add in, like, so the power is in your listening skills,
yeah,
right? And I don't think enough men realize that, in that if you're truly listening to the words that are being used, right? Because they're never going to tell you directly, you need to go to therapy. Maybe they'll do
yeah,
that, right? But
yeah,
generally, it starts out with something benign, right? They'll say something, they'll make a quip, or a little bit of criticism, and that's what's bothering them. That's what's going on in their heart and their mind,
right,
and it's deep rooted in their soul. And they need you to do this thing, but they don't want to. They don't. They're not your mom, right? And they
right,
don't want to push you into doing all of these things. They want you to make the decision as the man, to be the leader and say, okay, I recognize that there's some sort of deficiency here within the relationship. I recognize my role in this, and I'm willing to take and do my part to be able to change it, to be able to fix it. But
yeah,
if more men could just latch on to the fact that if you just listen, they'll tell you everything.
yeah. Listen, don't respond, ask questions. And again, like you said, the conscious relationship. Like, I'm not willing to play game conscious relationship. Like, I'm not willing to play games anymore. If there's a problem, tell me exactly what's going on. Even tell me how I can fix it, what I need to do. And I'll, like, this is how conscious, you know masculine feminine dynamic relationships work. Your end goal is forever together, right? Your end
Yeah.
goal is each other. You don't want anyone else but that person. And if you're going to keep it that way, you need to be impeccable with your words. Say what you mean what you say, explain what you're trying to get across. Because, like I said, again, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, most men aren't going to read your signs. They're not going to pay attention to the cues. They're not going to, we're not going to play into that just because we're fixers. We're A to B. We're not going to, some men will. I understand that some men will. But for the most part, we're not. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And then if we're just still not getting it, and men, you need to be able to say, hey, I don't understand. What do I need to do? Then
Right.
tell him exactly what he needs to do. And he'll probably 9 times out of 10 do it, right? Because he wants you in his life. He wants, you, contrary to popular belief, you are a safe place. A man who understands that his woman is his safe place is going to do whatever he can to appease her, to make her happy, to make her feel safe. So you have to be able to articulate that to him. And I hear women a lot say, well, he's just not, he's not paying attention. And I'm like, are you telling him? Are you telling him what he needs to hear? Are you telling him what's wrong with you? Are you telling him what you're feeling? No, he should just know. Okay. See how that goes for you. That ain't going to go very well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and then you always hear, "I'm not a mind reader."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're right. We're not mind readers, unfortunately. But again, if you pay attention a little bit, right, and
Yeah.
you work on your listening skills,
Yeah.
they're going to tell you what's going on in that relationship.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, and you
And
do.
then Lee says,
Go ahead.
Lee's just said that there has to be compatibility within that relationship to begin with. And the one thing I want to point out there is that when you're in a conscious relationship, right, you're dating with the intention that
Yeah.
this is going to lead to a higher level relationship, right? Like we're not just dating to date. I don't date to date. If you're
Nope.
dating to date, I don't need you in my life. I don't need you to waste my time. I just don't want that right now. I'm dating to find the person that I'm going to be with for hopefully the rest of my life, and hopefully that's a
Yes.
long time. At 43,
Yep.
you know, I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe I got 20 good years left, but
Yeah.
you know, I want to spend those 20 good years building a life with somebody that I can truly love and connect with on
Yeah.
a whole other level. And I don't need the Bumble dating life or the Match.com stuff, because
No.
what I've found is those same people that are on all those apps, every few years they tend to cycle back through,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's just funny to me
Absolutely.
because you see the same faces and you're just like, ooh, red flag. Like,
Yep.
I don't need to deal with that.
Oh, and that's the other part of finding your inner peace, right? Because you can start to see when someone's projecting on you, or when someone's, you know, attention hound, or all these different things that people have. You can start to see it, and you're just like, oh yeah, like they're projecting on me because blah blah blah. You don't have to speak it, you don't have to correct them in their behavior, but you just kind of understand what the hell is going on in life now, and with why people are acting the way that they're acting. And that's where you're not triggered anymore. This is where you've healed your past triggers. This is where you can just sit and be like, okay, this guy's yelling at me because he's insecure about blah 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 blah. You can have these conversations with yourself and understand why people are the way they are.
Yeah.
But like, so as far as relationship goes, I want to use this. I'll use myself as an example, so maybe the women in this live can understand. For men, for men, from what I think anyway, it is a physical attraction initially, right? We have, as men, we have the things that we find attractive, and again, it's a whole equation of our own personal likes and wants and what we find attractive. But that is only the first initial piece, right? If I'm at a restaurant or if I'm at a concert and I see a girl that I find attractive, whatever that might look like, whatever equation that looks like for me, oh, she's attractive to me. Now, if I go talk to her, if she can't hold a conversation, if she's, talking about her, like if she's talking about her ex, like throwing up all these red flags, I have no more interest in her, right? No matter how good looking she is, if she can't articulate herself, or if she can't hold a conversation, or she's not personable, then it makes all those physical attributes worthless. So like for me, it's a physical attraction first and foremost, and maybe that only is in the first couple hours, the first couple days, maybe a week. If as we start talking, I'm looking for compatibility immediately. I'm asking the questions, I'm having the conversations, like kind of just throwing questions in here and there, like feeling them out, figuring if we're compatible in our end goals in life and our wants. We're just whatever your list is, right? And if in the first 1 to 4 weeks I establish that, hey, there is compatibility here with this person, only then am I going to explore an emotional and physical connection, because that is what I'm protecting the most. I don't want to get physically and emotionally attached to someone and then have it fall apart in 2 or 3 months, and then I'm broken again. Now I'm grieving, now I'm picking myself back up and fixing all my bullshit again. So like, it's very important to me to find compatibility first, and then and only then explore the emotional and physical connection.
So are you telling me you broke a pattern?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. That's what this is
Very
all
much
about,
so.
man.
Yeah, and it was
It's breaking that habit of being yourself. You get put in this place of doing these things over and over again with people, and it's a different person every single time, but it's the same result, right? And at some point, you have to take responsibility for your decisions, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what this comes down to. Is it's usually that at that point you'll make the decision finally to move forward and seek a therapist, right? Find
Yeah.
somebody to talk to, dive into your spirituality or your religion or whatever it is that you're into,
Yeah.
but find the thing that brings you peace, right? So that you can continue to work on yourself.
Yes. Yeah. That's it too. It it became more than like, I mean, I went through the phase after my divorce where I hated women, or I was just into casual relationships, or I was hyper independent, you know. But now it's like, all right, sex is sex, right? You can get sex anywhere. If you really wanted it, you go buy it. You could go on Tinder. You can search casual relations. It's very easy in today's world.
You just get on Bumble, like
Dude, it's so ridiculously easy to
yeah,
find sex.
not
But
worth it.
when maybe it's our age in life, maybe it's what we've been through. I don't know. I'm 42, you're 43, but like you said, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for someone. My kids are older. I have like 5 more years before they're off on their own, both of them. Like, I'm looking for someone to travel with. I'm looking for someone to spend the rest of my life with. I'm looking for someone to do all the things that I couldn't do over the last 20 years because I was raising kids, to do with and go do something. And I mean, I'll do it alone. I'm fine being alone. I'm more than willing to do those things alone, but it would be, the companionship would be nice. So if I'm going out on a date with you, or if I'm getting to know you, or if I'm dating you, my intention is to marry you, or, spend the rest of my life with you in some fashion. That's what I'm looking for. So I don't know. It's just different for everybody, but I think that's a telltale sign. Another telltale sign, women, is if you're talking to a man or you're in the beginning stages of a relationship and he is putting physicality before everything, that's a very good sign right there that he's only interested or is immature when it comes to a mature relationship, because sex is important in a relationship for connection, but it doesn't
Right.
define the relationship.
And that's also going to be rooted in that person's own trauma and belief system and things that they've
Yeah.
been through throughout their young life. They may believe that that's the only way they can truly connect with somebody is through
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah.
Right. And it's unfortunate when that hits that point in somebody's life. But again, when you can communicate with somebody what your intentions are in the beginning, right? I'm not saying do it on the first date, right? Get a couple dates in the books first, and have some good conversation. Like, talk about the topics that are important to both of you, right? But then when you feel comfortable, 3 weeks in, a month in, say, look, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want.
Yeah.
Really, really lead that relationship. Like, I like you. I want to be with you. I like where this is going. We should continue this, but I also want it to be monogamous. And make those things very clear, because
Yeah.
when you have that ambiguity in the relationship, it can send somebody into a frenzy, right? And you just feel unsure, you're uncertain, you don't know what's going on. And it's like, okay, well, you have the power within you. Use your words, just
Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
really that simple, but we're so afraid of it. And it's like, why are you so afraid to communicate what you want? And it's because
Yes.
you don't know what you want. That's the issue,
Yep,
right?
that is the issue. The biggest issue is you don't even know yourself, but you're trying to date
Yeah.
people. You're trying to find your forever person, and you don't even know what the hell you need or want from another person.
Yeah.
it's
And
it's crazy.
and so Lee's said the intimacy is so important, is it adds to the physical. And I would 100% agree with that. And I'll challenge you in your relationships the next time you're with your partner to do some light breath work, right? So set the tone in the bedroom, light some candles, get some good music going, whatever that means to you. If it's
Right.
that spiritual music at the 528 hertz that you get at like the spa or
Yeah.
something like that, or if it's a little Marvin Gaye, whatever it is, but you can sit across from one another, right? And you put your hand on the other person's heart and they put theirs on yours, and you hold them close, right, with your other hand. So you're like this, and you just go through the natural process of just box breathing by itself, right? So it's that in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Now you're creating this deep rooted intimacy that neither one of you have ever experienced before in your life, right? You're truly feeling their heartbeat. You're connected to this person in a way that you never would have been connected with, right? Just through sex, because sex is it can become very mechanical. You're not really going through the emotions and the feelings in that moment. And this is forcing you, right, to be in that moment with that person and to truly feel their soul and their heart and what they mean to you in that moment, right? And it becomes a very beautiful thing when you allow yourself to do that, but it's so uncomfortable, right? There's going to be laughter. There's going to be like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm doing this right now, right? But when
But
you
that's
get
all
a few,
part of it.
right, but you get a few minutes into it, and now all of a sudden it's just you relax and you can feel uh, your nervous system. You're moving into your parasympathetic nervous system, so you're in your rest, digest, and heal, right? And you're just going to relax, and you're going to feel your body and your shoulders just kind of droop, right? And it's going to be an amazing feeling. And then you can move in and start initiating into the intimacy of touching one another, caressing, and moving into the
Yeah.
sexual portion of that. And I'm telling you, brother, you do that, and it's going to light the whole thing on fire.
Yeah.
You're going to have sex in a way that you've never had it before.
Well, that's the thing. Like we brought up earlier, like we want everybody to experience the feeling that we have of that peace. I want everybody to experience the feeling of having a true emotional and physical connection with someone. That kind of sex, that kind of intimacy
Yep.
is just on another level. Like now that I've experienced that once in my life, everything else can just get the hell away. Like I don't like I've leveled up now and I don't want anything but that because it was so intense, it was so satisfying, it was so fulfilling and passionate and just like everything I've ever wanted out of it. You can't go back to that surface level bullshit. It just
No, you can't, right? And that's why it's like, people slide into your DMs and they'll leave comments and stuff like that, and it's like, thank you for that. Like, I appreciate it, but
yeah. Oh yeah.
we're not even playing on the same playing field,
No.
right? And it's just like, and I hate to say that it's not spiritual narcissism or anything like that. It's just I know who I am and I know what I want,
Yeah.
and I know I don't want that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
I get the question all the time, why are you single? Because I want to be. Because I'm looking for
yeah,
something on another level. Like I'm 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 exploring in the top 3% of people in this world. Like there's so much that I want for me to be able, to give myself to someone else. It's not that I have high standards. It's just that I want the whole package, my whole package.
right.
It's not necessarily a standard. There are values involved and there are deal breakers involved, but I could go find a partner to live the rest of my life with tomorrow if I wanted to, but I want to find my person, my passion that I can just feel and enjoy the rest of my life with, like just on a deeper level than anybody's ever experienced. And I'm willing to wait for that. I'm just not
Yep.
willing to. If I don't find it, then it was God's will for me to be single for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. If that's my purpose, if I'm supposed to go through the rest of my life helping other people, teaching other people, and just not be in another relationship, I'm fine with that. But I believe he has bigger things for me. I mean, I pray for it, and I think it's in my future. I'm just not there yet.
It,
But
brother, I can guarantee you, it is definitely in your future.
yeah,
There is no doubt about that, right? When you go
yeah,
down this path and you start doing what it is that we're doing by helping others, right? You're elevating yourself, you're elevating your life, and things are just going to come to you in ways that you never thought possible, right? But
yeah,
it's through your spirituality, it's through God. I know you have this knowing inside of you that that's what's coming for you, and
yeah,
so it's just enjoying the process and being here in this moment, right? Like, this has been a great 2 hours, right? Just in the moment, we're
yeah.
focused on one another, we're having a conversation. We have a lot of great people in the chat right now that have been throwing comments in and asking questions and giving us
Yes,
likes. We really appreciate that. But to be here with you guys and be able to do this and be in this moment is
yeah,
amazing. And if you can just add this element into your own life where you're staying present, and it's really easy to get to a place where you're kind of time traveling, where we go into our past and we dive into that because it's comfortable and familiar, or we go into the future because we want this one thing to happen so bad and I can't wait for it to be there. But the true power of your emotion is being in the now. It's just
yeah.
being right here. And so
Oh,
I
and
can't
that's,
thank you enough
yeah,
for all of this. It's been great.
I appreciate it too. And that's one last thing I want to touch on is I'll always say this: complacency is a devil's playground. As you're growing, as you're evolving, as you're healing, as you're going through all this, you have to continue to step forward. You have to continue to step up. I mean, if you're never going to get to a point where you're just healed and you can just sit and be and exist, because there's always something that you can do to better yourself for the rest of your life to the day you die. So don't ever forget that there's like an end goal. The end goal should be that you heal your traumas and you heal your past self so you can be present in your space and time right now and look forward and not look back. But the reality is that, I mean, you got to put yourself out there, put yourself in situations that you're not comfortable in so you can get comfortable in them and you can grow and you can evolve.
All right. So before we get going, what is the one thing that you would tell somebody right now? They're fresh in the hurt. They need that one thing that's gonna help whatever it is that they're going through right now. What would you tell them to do for that one thing?
Practice self-love. And what is self-love? Self-love is inner work. Self-love is inner acceptance. Self-love is accepting what happened, accepting who you are, how it made you feel. Um, the difference between self-love and self-care is external, self-love is internal. Just have grace, have love, have understanding for yourself, accept what happened to you, you know, live in the moment, and then figure out a plan, however you're going to do it, whether it be through therapy, whether it be through, health, life coaches, whether it be through a best friend who's been through and this is what I want to touch on too. Like, your friends and your family are not really the greatest people to go to because their end goal is to keep you happy and safe and coddle you per se. They don't want to see you hurting. But if you do have a friend who's been through similar situations, who can tell you the things you need to hear, not what you want to hear, find someone to talk to. Find someone, anyone. I mean, I talk to people all the time, all day, about whatever. Just reach out, just ask, because there's guys like you and me, and there's millions of other people who are willing to help you. All you have to do is ask.
Absolutely. I love that.
So,
see, we got any other questions in the chat?
yeah, if you guys have any last questions, we got like 3 more minutes. If you guys have any last questions, we got like 3 more minutes.
So while
What
you're
about
here,
you?
if you get no, go ahead.
What was your answer to that question? What would you tell someone?
Well, my answer is always going to be because that this is like the overarching theme for what I do, but it's to dive into breath work.
Yeah.
It's your therapist is in the very beginning. They're going to tell you holotropic breath work, right? They're going to tell you to start with box breathing. And what you're doing when you do this is you're regulating your nervous system from all the things that have caused you some sort of dysregulation. But what I'm teaching in the process is that not only are you taking care of all those negative emotions, but at the same time, you're strengthening your nervous system, you're strengthening your immune system, you're strengthening your diaphragm, you're going to breathe better, you're going to feel better, you're going to have more energy. And there's just so many benefits to it. It's why I have the two books here in the background, right? They've put a lot of work into the studies on this stuff. And if you want to improve your life and overcome the negativity in your life, lean into your breath, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that you can do mentally, but the physical aspect is to take care of yourself. So I would say make yourself a priority and take care of yourself.
Dave had a question. My question is, if I shave my head, will I be as intelligent as both of you?
That's just what happens. The more you read, the more hair you lose. It's
Yeah,
just
God only made so many heads perfect, and He covered the
yeah.
rest. I don't know. Well, Jason, I sincerely appreciate you
Yeah,
doing this
Brian,
with
thank
me.
you.
We'll definitely do it again sometime. We can talk more about the breathwork part of it. I went to therapy today, and I was talking to my therapist about this whatever live that we were doing tonight, and I asked her about breathwork, and she said, "Oh yeah, I could teach you all that." I'm like, "Well, why the hell haven't you ever?" Like,
Yeah.
I've been seeing you for 5 years. We never talked about breathwork.
Yeah, you want to know why? Because the more you do it and the more you make a practice of it, the less you're going to feel the need that you need to go to your therapist. Because I was going to mine, and I hit the point where they didn't have answers for me anymore, and then I started diving into all this other stuff, into books and breath work, and then I just realized, like, I feel good. And like, so then I just took a break for a while, and I made it more sporadic, and then I just hit the point where I don't need it now. It's not saying that I won't go back eventually, right? Because something will pop up, right? But for the time being, I'm good.
Yep. So where can the people in my life, where can they get a hold? Because you do life coaching, you do coaching for breath work, you do all that. Where can they find you?
So I've got a couple different things going on. You can reach me at Life and Breath on TikTok or Jaybird Fit on Instagram. There's also a Facebook page, but if you go to my Stand With Me and TikTok, all my socials are there. I'm starting a YouTube channel as well, so you can connect there. But I do have a 21-day program that's all about empowering you to be your best self and to overcome your anxiety through breath work. That starts on April 1st, and that'll be in the link as well. And again, that's at the top of my profile. There's actually 2 people in here that were a part of it, and they just finished up and gave me glowing reviews for that. So I appreciate those 2 for being here and for giving me the support. Heather and Chandra, thank you very much. But yeah, so
okay. Awesome. I may even take you up on that. That's interesting. I do all kinds of stuff that I've never done before, and I'm always learning. So I may take your course. That would be amazing. So I appreciate you, sir. We will do this again, and everybody, I thank you for sticking around. This was a really good live. I hope it was, good. I hope it was informative. I mean, I think it was. We had a really good conversation. So I'll post this tomorrow, this 2-hour live, almost like a podcast on my YouTube channel. It's Brian Morgan - Focus Not Fear. But I'll put it there, and you guys can go check it out if you missed any parts of it. So,
right on,
Jason, my friend. It was a good one. I will talk to you later.
All right, sir. Take care.
Yep, you too. Bye. The rest of you, I'll talk to you guys later.